talking draft on this edition of Titans today. The season is essentially over for Tennessee. You're not making the playoffs. It's about building for 2025 and beyond. Currently, Tennessee has the number 3 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. That's going to ebb and flow throughout the remainder of the season. Tiebreakers, wins, and losses all going to impact it. The downside here is this is not the greatest draft class. There are concerns, valid ones, about the overall top-end talent, and especially for Tennessee, the quarterback talent. Now, we're doing draft targets that are worth tanking for on today's show. If you want a 2025 Titans mock draft, share today's video. I want to make sure that we're doing the content that you guys care about, that you want to see. We're going to begin, shocker, at quarterback. Let's go to Shedeur Sanders, the Colorado quarterback. There are plenty of things to like about Shedeur. I think he is a very accurate quarterback. I think he typically processes decently well. There are times he holds the ball too long. Not as bad as every quarterback in this draft. The accuracy is very good. The biggest question marks I have around Shedeur is, can I add some more weight to his frame? He's probably playing like 200 pounds right now, and that's kind of regardless of what he's listed at. I also care a lot about the non-measurables here. The leadership stuff. He threw his offensive line under the bus. How much is dad going to influence things here? Is that a potential red flag? But I do think from an accuracy perspective, from a reliability perspective, there's a lot to like in Shedeur's game. The arm strength is not elite, but it is good. I think from an on-field, what I value in quarterbacks, even though he's not an elite athlete necessarily, I think Shedeur is probably my early quarterback one, but it is early, and there aren't overwhelming physical traits with Sanders either. Next up is Cam Ward, and I think you'll see Shedeur go round 1. I think you see Cam Ward go round 1. The highlight reel for Cam Ward is better than any quarterback in this year's class. The downside here you're going to potentially run into is Cam Ward is a gunslinger. He is not exactly the most, how do I put this delicately? If you want someone to play on time, in structure, and not get a little bit chaotic and reckless, that's not Cam Ward's game. He does a lot of really good things. He also does some things that are frustrating. He holds the ball crazy long. He will pass on the in the read, go to the guy that's open over the middle and try to hold on and get the big chunk play. And that makes it fun. It makes it entertaining. It makes him the anti-Daniel Jones in many ways. The downside is you get some of those Malik Willis elements where it's like, just do the thing that was right there in front of you. Why won't you do that? Why won't you just take the stuff that's right there in front of you? It makes him not for everybody. It makes him a gunslinger. There's a double-edged sword in general to his play style. That's might scare you a little bit maybe with some of the stuff we've seen from Will Levis. He turns 23 in May. But there will be teams that have Ward as quarterback 1. There will be teams that have him at quarterback 3 or 4. So do you want to draft a quarterback in round 1? Why for yes and for no? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. In a class that just really isn't regarded as maybe having any true first-round grades, Jalen Milroe is the wild card. He's the one that you go, oh, okay, what are we really going to get out of him? Because when he uses his legs, this is one of the most dynamic players in all of college football. The speed, if he runs the 40, I don't know if he will. I think he's going to run like a 4.37. Like, that's how fast Jalen Milroe is. He is someone asked me on an NFL Live show, explain the Jalen Milroe to me. Big arm, run fast. That normally works of like why I like you as an NFL draft prospect. The down in, down out passing game consistency is a real red flag. There's a real red flag, a massive concern with every quarterback prospect in this year's class. Milroe, in the intermediate passing game. Like, are you consistent enough, accurate enough there? He holds the ball way too long, by the way, too. I wish more often he was just 1-2 and go. He just sometimes is 1-2 go, 3 later. It's just too long. Cam Ward's too much of a gunslinger for some people. Shedeur Sanders lacks the overwhelming physical talents that even Cam Ward has with his arm, Jalen Milroe has with his arm. And those are like the only guys you would really probably consider in round 1. And it's even pushing up probably round 2 grades like you saw with Penix and McCarthy and Nix last year. The other quarterback prospects are, Garrett Nussmeier does some good processing stuff, better than most guys in this class. He also just makes some really weird boneheaded decisions that don't make any sense. Quinn Ewers cannot push the ball downfield. He's not accurate, and it's still an issue. Drew Aller is, I don't love his game overall. There's still just there's not enough to it for me, despite the great size. Carson Beck was viewed as like, he's the safe guy. He's not going to turn the ball over. All he's done is turn the ball over this year. So what's the benefits? Jackson Dart is good when it's the first read, and in the Lane Kiffin offense, it's really bad outside of that. So be honest with me. If you want a quarterback in round one, who is your quarterback one in the 2025 NFL Draft? Let me know in the comments of today's show. Now, if you don't go quarterback, if Will Levis suddenly makes a massive jump forward, seems unlikely, some other names to consider. How about the best player in the class? That's Travis Hunter. He legitimately has armed to be the number one receiver in this class. He's had very good production this year. Really good after the catch, fantastic ball skills, a little bit skinny overall, and also legitimately the number one corner in this year's class, which I think I'd play him at corner first and give him some offensive reps, but I'd play him at both. He's a freak. Everyone keeps saying, oh, well, he can't do it in the NFL. I'm like, okay, that's what you said about college, and he keeps doing it still. He is the best prospect in this year's class, but Tennessee might need a quarterback a little bit too much more, or might need an offensive lineman. The problem here is you've got question marks on Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks Jr. Didn't necessarily have his best stuff against Georgia, even if the production doesn't show it. Cameron Williams had a really rough game against Georgia, which is almost one of those things where Kelvin Banks looked better statistically against Georgia because the right tackle got beat faster type of deal. Will Campbell's been a little bit inconsistent for me this year. Both guys have had penalty concerns. Also, if you value length in your tackles, Campbell and Banks are going to be 33-inch arms at best, and for some teams, which I think is outdated, but still, that is a concern. They're first-round picks. They might be more like worthy of pick 12 or 11 than like pick 3. The other offensive line prospects, Emory Jones has not had the best season. Cameron Williams has freaky athletic traits that'll get him drafted whenever he turns pro in round one, but he's very raw still, which would make him a good fit in Tennessee, but that would almost be like take a quarterback at 3 and trade up in the back end of round 1 for somebody. Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota, big boy. Wyatt Millum might also be a guard. That's kind of the big concerns, that it's a great interior offensive line class. There's question marks about the tackles if you kick those guys inside. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Ride with my boy Harrison Graham's picks on Thursday Night Football. Jaden Daniels less than passing yards. A.J. Brown more than receiving yards. PrizePicks invented the flex play, and they have the only daily fantasy sport with an injury insurance policy. If a player goes down in the first half, does not return, your picks stay live even if they get hurt. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win. It is guaranteed. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get that $50 instantly once you play your first $5 lineup. All right, other top prospects, not all of whom actually make sense for Tennessee. Mason Graham, I think, is the best interior defensive lineman this year. I think he'll be a top 10 pick. The production is hidden by the fact that Michigan is terrible, and turns out you can't get great pass rush chances when your offense is bad and you're losing a bunch of games. Go figure. But Tennessee also has Jeffrey Simmons, and they drafted T'Vondre Sweat. I don't think another top 10, top 7, top 5 pick on an interior defensive lineman makes a ton of sense. Will Johnson is going to be some people's best player in the class. Sometimes, actually probably, maybe second best behind Hunter for a bunch of people. Tennessee's also invested in corner, Awuzie. They have McCreary. I like both of those Michigan guys. I just question if that is the proper positional value that is what Tennessee needs right now. Edge rusher, I'm a little bit more intrigued by. Because we'll see what they do with Arden Key. Harold Landry's getting up there, and his contract is getting near-ish towards the end, a little bit less so than Key, but still. Nick Scorton is a really good run stopper, too. That's why his TFL numbers are so high and his sack numbers aren't quite as good. I'd like to have him cut a little bit of weight. Reminds me a little bit of some Tank Lawrence to his game. I, in general, don't love the power rushers because I think it is easier to find a good power rusher than it is to find the twitchy, athletic, freaky athletes, which we'll get to one of those guys in just a second. But in general, all the players in round 1 this year, who do you want the Tennessee Titans to draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. That freaky athlete is Abdul Carter out of Penn State. He's going to get Micah Parsons comps because he was a linebacker, off-ball linebacker, and then wears number 11, and then made the move to edge rusher this year, and it's really worked out for him. He has had 4 sacks the past 2 games against Washington and Penn State. A little bit of a slower start to the season because, half his sacks come in the past 2 games, but he has really ratcheted up the pressure rate. He looks dynamic in there. I would not be surprised if he's the first pass rusher taken in this year's class. Even with Calvin Ridley on board, this is something we mentioned, earlier this season even, receiver's going to be something you need to consider for Tennessee. Ted McMillan is really fun. The Arizona offense many times is from Noah Fafita, who's also fun but crazy undersized, is going to be F-it McMillan down there somewhere. This is like bordering on the Allen Robinson, Christian Hackenberg year where it's like F-it, Robinson's down there and it makes the quarterback look better than maybe he is. 6'5", about 210. I want to see him add some weight, but he's way more shifty and fluid and smooth as a route runner and good after the catch than you would expect for someone at that size, and he's got great body control on the sidelines too. Luther Burden has not had the level of production that I was hoping you were going to get out of him this year. Injuries, Missouri's just in general bad offense and quarterback play have kind of limited his production. He is really dynamic as a yak generator. Once the ball's in his hands, really good things tend to happen. Not on the same level of like Jamar Chase, of Malik Neighbors we've seen in recent years. This is like a lesser version of that. That'll put him in consideration for top 10, top 15 pick selection. We will have Titans draft coverage for you all season long. Do not miss out. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/Titans today. Off-season stuff, we got you covered. Jalen Walker is a very fun prospect because he's played a lot of off-ball linebacker for Georgia, but has also been really dynamic as a blitzer. And I kind of feel like deploying him as a 3-4 outside linebacker is probably the best way to maximize him, where he can still be a pass rusher, where he can still be impactful and can still be, dynamic and get after players and all of those things. So I'm excited to see how Jalen Walker looks this upcoming season. Malaki Starks, the safety, is next up here. Oh, I said this season. I meant the rest of the season for Jalen Walker, obviously, but he's been really dynamic. Starks, it's not going to be the splashiest stat lines. Safety is not the biggest priority for almost any NFL team, although Tennessee could be in the ballpark there, depending on what they do with Amani Hooker long term. It's tough to convince a team that needs a quarterback to take, hey, go safety instead in round 1. That's what the Falcons did with Kyle Pitts, and that's only just now working because they got a different quarterback. But talent-wise, he's, I think, pretty clearly a top 10 guy. Other top prospects. I know some people who love Isaiah Bond, some who don't. Want to honorable mention him. Probably not top 10, though, really at all. Siobhan Ravel, if he wasn't hurt, would be in the just outside the Will Johnson conversation. Other edges, some of who have not lived up to expectation, Michael Williams, James Pierce. Shamar Stewart's had a good year for A&M. Turns out A&M and Ole Miss both have dudes all across the board up front. And then Ashton Jeanty is going to be a top 10 player, but Tennessee has Tony Pollard, so there's really no purpose in drafting him.